About a year ago, I was checking out this drill guide from Enjoywood that you can pick up on Bang Good. And to be fair, I found it to be very useful around my workshop and a solid quality. However, recently I found out that they do offer a new upgraded version with some really cool features. So in today's video, I'm going to present you this new drill guide from Enjoywood. Check out the video. Alright then, but let's take a few steps back and see how it actually arrived to me and exactly how to put it together and what you get in the package. As you see, the box is nothing fancy, but what's inside, that's what matters. And you do get a bit of a manual here, how to put everything together, how to adjust things. That's cool. And look at that, okay? All the pieces do have their own cubbies, so I'm going to take everything out and we'll see exactly what we've got. And there you have it. That's all the pieces you get in this package. You do get some guides, so that's pretty cool. Really nice big handles as well. Obviously the chuck, and the body itself seems to be a lot bigger than the original one that I did show you about a year ago. However, this does have a very cool feature. Now you can set it up to any angle you want, and it does have some positive stops, and yeah, you can drill some angled holes now with that in an accurate way, but we'll be testing that in a moment. First of all, let's install these handles. They are handles, but also they will lock the whole jig in place. Okay, you do need those plastic washers to go first, and just simply screw on the handle. Now we can install the chuck. Make sure the jaws are fully open, and I'm going to show you in a second why. Simply you just thread that on just like so, and you may think to yourself, well, that's not a very good and sturdy connection. True, that's why you get this screw in the set, and it actually needs to go through the middle of our chuck, just inside, to secure it in place. And to tighten that screw up, it's actually anti-clockwise, okay? And use the key to give you additional leverage to lock it fully in place. And yes, the chuck itself does require a key. It's not a keyless chuck, so from that perspective, you know, it's going to take you a few seconds to do it up. And the chuck itself, hopefully you can actually see that, goes from 1.5mm to 13mm size. In the set itself, on one of the rods, you also do get a positive stop that you can lock in place and get the right depth of your holes. If you need to, you do get that knob to lock it in place, and now your drill will stop at that certain height. Now there is another very useful feature here, okay? If you do have a bit of wobble in the chuck or in the whole body here, well, you do have screws that you can do up or undo depending, to make sure there is absolutely no wobble. And I actually do have a slight movement over here, so I'm just going to do these up ever so slightly, and now it's absolutely perfect, no wobble at all. As I said, similar with the chuck, I do have slight play. So we do have 4 screws here. Let's do them up slightly. Just make sure not to do it too tight, otherwise your chuck will not be able to spin. So definitely these are very good and welcome additions to dial up the accuracy of the whole jig. However, one thing I do want to point out, okay, even with the added benefit that you can amend the potential wobble and make sure it's as accurate as possible, I don't think this will be as accurate as a good class pillar drill or press drill. I think those tools are to another level when it comes to accuracy. This is more for the jobs that, you know, the pillar drill is just not an option, okay? You need to take this to your project to actually pre-drill those holes. So I wouldn't expect that type of accuracy from this tool. However, I think it's still going to give us fairly decent results, but let's test that out. Installation of the drill bit, it is quite simple, you know, there's nothing to it. You just have to use the key to make sure the chuck is fully closed. First of all, let's add our drill and check this out. this is not leaning to any side. You've got a nice and stable position of the jig itself. And that's even with a battery powered drill. So there is a bit of weight right at the end here. So that is actually very, very good. Another thing that I really like about this jig are the handles, okay? Obviously, you know, if you undo them, you can change the angle of the jig and then lock it in place. But actually, as an added benefit, it give you a greater stability over the jig. So there's actually somewhere to grab this jig by and plunge your drill bit. Plus the base itself is big enough that you can quite easily clamp it down to your material. So let's drill some holes. Now I've set up the stop block over here. Let's see if that's going to work fine. No issues at all. Easy to do up and easy to release. Let's have a look how accurate these holes are. Let's take out the drill bit. Well, that's pretty much perfect actually. Can't see any gaps, so that's good. Not bad at all. Inside of the body here in the base you also do have some pointers, okay, so you can align this with lines on top of your workpiece. So let's have a look how accurate these positions are. With those two lines marking our middle over here, we can now establish the position of the jig. And as I said, you do have 4 corners here to actually marry everything up. There you go. I think that's pretty much in the center. However, holding it by hand as the drill spins may bring you some flawed results. The problem is in the base itself. It's nice, dead flat and everything. However, it's made out of casted aluminium and it looks gorgeous, but it's very, very sleek and slippery. It's actually easy to float away with your jig out of the position you want it to be. So if you really want to have absolutely dead on accurate holes, then I would suggest clamping it down, or actually put some double-sided tape and some sandpaper on it, and then the jig won't slide that easily. However, this jig does come with a bit of accessory that you can quite easily install, and fingers crossed it will help alleviate this issue just a little bit. So in total you got 4 of these rods and you do have 2 of these guides. And these will also square up your jig against the edge of your material. So let's try to set this up. And now with this installed, it will help us to square up our jig, hold it in place so it doesn't wobble that much on us. And on top of it, thanks to this edge, we can just move along on the edge of our piece of work and just pre-drill the holes. And hopefully you can see this, the lines do align up absolutely perfectly. Now, if you do want to pre-drill corners of your project, you can do that in an easy way simply by adding the second pair of the guides. And now you've got a positive stop every single time, the same distance on every corner. And again, it gives you a bit more stability. Now, how about if you want to pre-drill your hole very close to the edge of your material? The closest you can get with this solution is quite far. It's probably about, well, tell you what, I'm going to tell you exactly, 7 centimeters, okay? So it is fairly far away. However, what you do, you just flip this like so. And then, check that out. You can go basically right on the edge of the material if you needed to. Lock it in place and you're ready to pre-drill your holes nicely and accurately. And as you can see, you can get super up close to the edge. But you can get even closer than that, basically on the edge itself. Now let me just tell you the size of the base, as that could be an interesting factor to you. So you've got 14 centimeters by 14 centimeters, so that's nice and square. And the base opening, that's quite large as well. However, the largest bit you're gonna take needs to be around 8 centimeters, as the distance from the tip to the tip, I do have 8.2 centimeters. Okay, obviously the other way is a little bit larger, but you're not going to be able to squeeze in anything bigger than 8. Over here we've got about 10.2 centimeters, so it's a fairly large opening for those larger bits like the Forstner bits. And as I said before, because of the size of the base itself, and you do have that special empty space over here, you can quite easily clamp this down to your workpiece and to your workbench with no issues at all. And now this is nice, super stable, and it's not going to shift on you, and you can pre-drill your holes accurately. And the main feature, the main improvement of this jig over the last edition is the ability to actually change the angle of your drilling. And as you can see, you do have nice clear indicators there, left to right. You got maximum of 60 degrees, and you do have those marks on both sides as well, so there's no issues in finding the right position. And as you unlock this, just like so, I hope you're going to be able to hear this. As it clicks into position, it does have built-in set angles as well, so that's a massive help, and it's so much easier to get the right angle. So let's set up 45 degrees, lock it in place, and let's pre-drill some holes under an angle. And let's have a look how accurate that is. There you go. We've got 45.3 degrees. I think that's pretty damn accurate. But hey, let's test this out with something a little bit more substantial. So I've got Forstner bit, 32 millimeters. So that's fairly large on the 45-degree angle. Let's have a go and see how this will perform. And there you go. That wasn't too bad at all. Good stability and control, really nice and clean cut as well. Right then, there's another feature I want to show you. You do get a pair of pins like these that you can install right on the base. This will allow you to center the jig on narrower pieces if, for example, you do want to have a hole right in the middle of your workpiece. And the way you use this, simply put the jig over the material you want to pre-drill a hole and just twist it until both of the pins come in touch with the material itself. And now your drill bit will be perfectly centered to the thickness of your material. Simple as that. However, we are not done with all the features yet. I've got one more thing I want to show you when it comes to this jig. You probably did notice these two red elements at the front and at the back of the jig, and these are to help you and assist you with pre-drilling dowels. Okay, that will give you great stability and control over your dowel, and now quite easily you can pre-drill a hole in it. Nice, simple and accurate. However, the downside is, if you do want to pre-drill the end or the tip of your dowel, well, it's not going to happen. That's going to wobble too much. And because of the base opening is so wide, you are losing a lot of material. So the closest hole you can pre-drill on a dowel, I would say it's going to be about 6.5 centimeters in. So it's a good addition, but definitely not perfect. And finally, I do want to compare the new upgraded jig to the base model, the first one I had. As you can see, this is much smaller. The base is smaller, the opening is smaller. However, you can actually flip this on this side, and then you've got wider opening, but it's still less than this jig. And because of its size, it's far less stable when you actually attach the drill. It tends to lean over and fall over. So definitely this jig from that perspective is a much better solution. Plus you do have these handles to actually help you align and hold it in place, whereas here, well, there's nothing there to hold. On top of it, if this is inaccurate from the factory, well, there's not much you can do about it. There's no screws, no pins, no anything to make sure there is no wobble. To be fair, in my example, this is fairly stable. There's hardly any wobble, same in the chuck. Whereas with this one, if you do have any wobble left to right, anything like that, you can actually amend this. Now with this, you can also get the guides that I did show you on this one. More or less, it's very similar concept and it works fine as well. Overall though, I think this is a fantastic improvement over the base model that gives you that a little bit more. Now I do have a full video about this with all the accessories around it, so I'm going to leave a link to this one down below in the description of this video, as because we've got the second upgraded version, this can be bought very, very cheaply, and to be fair, I was quite happy with it. However, this is definitely a clear and obvious improvement over the base model. And saying that, it will still not break the bank. You can still get it at a decent price. And a little birdie told me this could be still on offer as the video airs on YouTube. So have a look and check what is the price in your country, as the prices will vary depending on where you live. So if you do want to have the option to actually drill your holes at an angle, as sometimes, you know, there could be a need for it, then this is a clear winner here with all the features and options. And the bigger base allows you to clamp it down, and overall I think it's a very good quality and a very good guide. But as I did mention at the start of the video, please don't expect accuracy as you would get from a really decent pillar drill or anything like that. For normal woodworking projects and use, this will be more than enough. At this point, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to my Patreons for the ongoing support. And before you go, check out these two cool playlists here. Plenty of great videos there. Click on them and maybe you'll find your next one to watch. However, for today, that's all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.